Hi everyone, and welcome to another video on World War One. And this time what we're going to be looking at is how the war helped to develop medical treatments. Now, seems a bit strange that. Well, let's go back a little bit. Throughout the recent history of pop music, ladies and gentlemen, there have been many songs about war. And a very famous anti-war song went something like this: War! What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Now that was sung by a man called Edwin Starr. Very famous anti-war song. War, what's it good for? Absolutely nothing. Now normally you would say, yeah, that's right. We don't like war. It's horrible. Kills people, kills soldiers, kills civilians. Not a good thing. And yet, Edwin Starr was not actually 100% correct, because emerging from the horrors of war, sometimes there are little bits of positive news. And World War One was one of those times. And in this video, I'm going to try and show you how the war actually had a positive impact on medicine. Strange, but true. So if you stick around for the next 10 minutes or so, hopefully I'll show you that message. Let's go back into the history. Those of you who've been studying medicine, the history of medicine, see my other videos for that if you do that in the exam. Go back, 1861, roughly about 50 years before the First World War. 1861, Louis Pasteur and germ theory had a massive impact on medicine. People began to realise that germs cause decay, germs cause disease. Move forward slightly, 1865, Joseph Lister, carbolic acid, helped to improve death rates in surgery because the carbolic acid was killing the infection, killing the germs. Another step forward in medicine. Antiseptic surgery against poison. Move forward again, the 1880s, the 1890s, an American surgeon, William Halsted, aseptic surgery, wearing rubber gloves, trying to create surgery which was germ-free. Another step forward. 1895, Wilhelm Röntgen and the X-ray machine seeing inside the body. Another step forward in medicine. And finally, as the century turned, 1900, 1901, Karl Landsteiner and his discovery of different blood groups, which then helped to sort out the problem of blood transfusions. So there had been progress in medicine leading up to World War One. But because of the nature of World War One, the trenches, the conditions, the dirt, the filth, the disease, the delay in treating soldiers because they're trapped in no man's land. Because of those particular conditions, ladies and gentlemen, normal antiseptic surgery, carbolic acid, etc., was not effective. Therefore, new ideas were needed. New methods were needed. And because of the war, and because the government are saying, look, we've got to get an answer because we want to help our soldiers recover so that they can fight again, people began to think carefully, and we are going to look at two methods, two ideas which actually helped the treatment of infection and infected wounds. Idea number one, irrigation. Now that's to do with water normally. Just as water can irrigate the land and put water onto the land for things to grow. Irrigation here. Two doctors, Dr. Carroll and Dr. Dakin, Carrel, Dakin. These doctors came up with an idea, a system of tubes, and then the tubes are full of chemicals, and the chemicals flush or irrigate or wash the body. System of tubes with chemicals washing through. hopefully clearing out the germs, clearing out the infection, stopping germs from spreading and stopping germs from killing. That was the first idea. Caused by the war, irrigation begins to deal with infected wounds. The first one. Idea number 2, Dr. Depage, D-E-P-A-G-E. Now his idea, right, there's a wound here being caused by a bullet or a piece of shrapnel or a piece of artillery. There's a wound. His idea was to do deeper surgery. Instead of just cutting out a little bit by the wound, no. Cut more away, cut more flesh away, go further into the body and cut out more stuff. Hopefully removing all the fragments or pieces of metal or shrapnel, even the tiny ones. And by cutting tissue further away from the wound, not just near the cut, hopefully you'll get all of the infection and remove it. So deeper surgery, Dr. Depage, D-E-P, deeper, D-E-E-P. That should help you remember it. Depage, deep. He also had another idea, and it was quite a clever new idea. Normally, once the surgery had been done, stitches would be applied and the wound would be covered up. What Dr. Depage had worked out and considered, he said, right, I don't think I'm going to do that. And he delayed closing the wound. What he would do is leave it 24, maybe 48 hours. Then check using the microscope. Check that all infection has been removed. If it's clear, then close the wound up. So what he was actually doing here, he was developing and devising a new system, a new method, which wasn't trapping the germs inside. Before, they'd do the surgery, immediately sew it up, stitch it, but the germs would still be inside, spreading, causing infection, gangrene, or from one of my previous videos, gas gangrene, which was a very, very severe problem. So this delay in closing the wound, it was actually called delayed primary closure. You leave it a day or two and then close the wound if it is clear from germs using the microscope technology. This worked, and the infection rate, the death rate began to fall. It didn't get rid of it totally, of course not. It was a terrible, dirty, filthy situation. So still many, many soldiers did die from infection. Remember, Alexander Fleming, a doctor in World War I, he saw soldiers die. When war was over, he went back and it took him 10 years to come up with penicillin to kill the germs, the wonder drug of the 20th century. But here we have the first two ideas. We've got Carroll and Dakin with their irrigation, washing the wound. And then we've got Depage with his deeper surgery and the delay. Depage, D, deeper, D, delay, D. That should help you to remember that one. So there we see how World War I, in a way, caused the problem because there's so many soldiers wounded and infected, but therefore the doctors had to solve the problem. And they'd come up with these solutions, these methods, these ideas, which did make things better. That's the first bit. Now, a second thing to consider. Many of the artillery shells, when they exploded, they caused huge problems, fractures to the soldiers' bones. Now, depending on what actually got broken hand, maybe a broken arm, it could be dealt with. But many, many soldiers suffered a fracture of the femur, which is the thigh bone. Now, at the start of the war, 1914, if you got a fractured femur, 80% chance of death, 80% death rate from a broken thigh bone. Because blood loss. It's such a huge bone, it's near some big arteries and veins, you would probably bleed to death. And if that didn't happen, you probably got the infection from all the mud. So, there's a problem here. And a Liverpool surgeon, a man called Dr. Thomas, he came up with the answer, and he developed what is known as the Thomas splint. And basically, it was sort of like a piece of metal, piece of wood, like a frame. And the soldier was put inside it, the leg was put inside this splint. And it basically stretched. Now, not very nice by the sound of it, but it was better for the soldiers, because if it's pulling the leg lengthways, the break isn't grinding against each other. So there's less pain for a start, less blood loss. Okay? The Thomas splint, by the end of the war, ladies and gentlemen, the death rate from broken femurs, fractured femurs, was 20%. So we've gone from 80% in 1914 to 20% in 1918. Here we have another development in the treatment of the soldiers caused by the war and solved by the war. It was better. It was effective. Final thing, X-ray machines. Remember Röntgen, 1895, the first X-ray. Well, here we are, 20 years later, in World War I. January 1915, so still towards the start of the war, the British Army had 2 mobile X-ray units. Later on, they had 14. What does that tell you? The importance of the X-ray. I'll deal with that more in another video. Why would an X-ray be so important? Any ideas? Well, remember the chain of evacuation. Stretcher bearer, RAP, dressing stations, casualty clearing stations, base hospitals. If you can move the X-ray machines further down the chain of evacuation, closer to the front, you can deal more effectively with the soldiers. You can deal with them better, quicker and safer, because you can use these X-ray machines to see all of the fragments and then hopefully remove them using irrigation or using the deeper wounds from découpage. And of course, if you can see the fragments, you don't have to get your hands in, because they'll be infected as well because of where all the dirt and the filth from the trenches was. So it was cleaner. There was less infection. So we see, in a way, Edwin Starr. Yes, I can see what he's saying. War, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. But if you'd slightly look at it a different way, the war did help to solve some of the problems, because the doctors, they had to come up with something, because there were so many problems, so many soldiers with these problems. The doctors, they had to come up with something, and they did. Irrigation, deeper surgery, delayed closure, the Thomas splint, the X-rays. All helped to improve medical treatments. So, there we have it. Hope it's been useful. There's another video coming, again on a very similar idea. And in this next video, I'll be looking at how the war and how the doctors helped particularly with types of surgery. That's coming soon. Hope you found this one useful. All the best now. I'll speak to you soon. Take care.